Good morning all, and you're very welcome to this session of the Intertrade Ireland All-Island Innovation Programme Speaker Series, which is looking at the entrepreneurial ecosystem and the role of the university in it. In today's session, we're delighted to be joined by Josette O'Mullane, who is the Innovation and Enterprise Manager at the Munster Technological University. She is also chair of the Irish Knowledge Transfer and Innovation Group and chair of the Irish Network of Technology Transfer Offices. So Josette, you're incredibly busy, and we want to give our gratitude for you joining us here today. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, delighted. Yeah, thank you.
Can I ask you, just starting out as a quick question, from a university perspective, like Munster Technological University, how important is it as an objective in nurturing the entrepreneurial ecosystem in your region, in our region?
Well, in terms of the strategic objective, the Technological Universities Act 2018 specifically sets out for us a remit in that space. Section 9, amongst other activities, includes collaboration with industry, making sure our research is relevant to industry, and supporting enterprise and entrepreneurship.
Okay. Yes, and I think there's been a lot of increase in collaboration between, even in this region, UCC and what was CIT before the merger. Is that contributing to the entrepreneurial ecosystem?
Well, it absolutely is, because we collaborate on in terms of knowledge transfer. We have a consortium led by UCC, the Bridge Network. We also collaborate on student entrepreneurship initiatives. So yeah, there's a lot of collaboration, and that collaboration is continuing, definitely.
Yeah, and you're doing Trojan work there on the student entrepreneurship, and you have a long legacy of showcases going on, and no more than UCC has. Yes. And that's something that Ricardo Finney will touch on, the importance of not only technology transfer, but the importance of our student entrepreneurship and the ramifications for the industry. So can I ask you, one of the things we were chatting offline about was the National Innovation IP Protocol. For the audience who, like myself, didn't know much about it up until 5 minutes ago, what is the National IP Protocol and why is it relevant?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Basically, it's a set of policies and resources to help industry make good use of publicly funded research. There's, I suppose, last year universities spent almost 600 million on research, and about 40 million of that was spent with industry. And the idea of the protocol is to set out clear policies on how that relationship works, and what universities in particular need to do and need to have in place to make sure they're in a position to commercialize that research and work with industry smoothly and efficiently.
And just universities working with industry, you obviously have had a key role over the last number of years driving forward that. What are some of the main barriers that you see, both either from a university perspective or from an industry perspective, in getting that engagement to work?
Well, I suppose there are cultural differences, and I think one of your other speakers will be talking about that, in that businesses are from Venus and academics are from Mars. And I think the national protocol actually sets out to address that and some of those barriers in codifying best practice, so that both universities and industry are working to a similar template. For instance, there's a number of template agreements available now nationally as a result of the IP protocol that universities and companies can refer to, so that companies know what to expect when they're dealing with the university, and universities then as well are taking a more unified approach towards dealing with industry when it comes to their agreements and their clauses and so on.
So if I was an Irish SME sitting up in Cookstown or in Athenry, and I wanted to engage and leverage this protocol, where would I find the information, or where?
It's all on KTI Knowledge Transfer Ireland.ie website, And you could just Google National IP Protocol. It's the first thing that comes up when you actually Google it. So it's, I mean, the host government agency is the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment. They're the host agency, and KTI are the organisation then that I suppose implements the policy and assists the universities and industry to implement that policy.
Okay. One of the key challenges that a lot of SMEs have when they're trying to leverage partners, be they universities or other, is how to find them. And, they're so busy. So what would be your advice to any industry that is looking for an external partner? How do they go and find out which is the correct one for them to begin that date?
I suppose in the first instance, again, Knowledge Transfer Ireland, as part of the resources on their website, they have find an expert search engine, if you like, and so that would be an initial point of contact. Also Enterprise Ireland have a number of funded technology gateways and technology centres, and again they're easily found on the Enterprise Ireland website if you're looking for an industry partner. Obviously, the technology transfer offices in the universities are a point of entry as well if you are looking to identify a research partner as an SME.
Okay. From your experience in the role over the last couple of years, can I ask, what have been some of the major successes that you've had in university industry engagement in technology transfer that have had impact on the entrepreneurial ecosystem?
Well, I think first of all, the National IP Protocol was revised in 2019, and in the protocol, a new chapter was inserted specifically on spin-outs and company formation, and that codified best practice, if you like, to guide universities on how they may approach spin-outs, but also to provide investors and entrepreneurs with an insight into what to expect when you are engaging with a university in terms of a spin-out. So that was a very that was a good departure, if you like, in terms of the protocol, or a new insertion. And I suppose when you think about it, the universities, they produce about 30 spin-outs annually, and that's separate to startups that are created by staff and students. So as an engine for growth and entrepreneurship, the universities are they're very active and very strong.
Okay. Obviously, you have the Rubicon and other key infrastructure that you've developed over the years. And while it's not your core area, but how impactful has that been in terms of venture creation? And
well, again, it's down to the numbers, I think, and the number of businesses that are being created as a result of university initiatives, if you like. So, I mean, it starts with the students, and as you mentioned, both ourselves and UCC have very active student entrepreneurship initiatives. We have the entrepreneurial, the Student Entrepreneurship Incubator now, accelerator every summer, Student Inc., and that supports 30 startups, if you like. They don't all go on to start businesses, but a percentage of them do. So I think roughly about 10% go on to have fully established businesses afterwards. And then when you move on the ecosystem, if you like, you have Ignite in UCC that produces a number of startups every year. And then going along the continuum, like a lot of those can move on to New Frontiers, which is another important part of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, driven by the universities and the institutes of technology up to now.
So what seems to have is we've reached a reasonable level of maturity in terms of the systems that were there compared to 10, 15 years ago, that there was a ladder to climb for these companies.
Absolutely. We describe it as a continuum, if you like, for entrepreneurs, depending what stage they're at in their lives or their studies. And we also have female entrepreneurship program because we were finding there weren't enough female founders. So again, in a partnership with Enterprise Ireland, we've run Excel program for women with a STEM background to encourage them to start their own businesses.
Yes, absolutely. In terms of, obviously, Ireland has developed the equity and the venture capital side of things, like the Irish Venture Capital Association and Intertrade's work on the equity side of things. How challenging is it, and it's always challenging, but how challenging is it today for spin-outs and startups to access good finance?
I suppose from our experience, it's the seed money is easier to get your hands on, up to 50K, for instance. It's the value of the 50K to 1 million. That's the amount of money that I think companies are finding it hard to attract. I mean, at the end of the day, the venture capital system in Ireland is relatively small, and they'll pick the best projects, if you like, the most investable. So I suppose it's up to us now in the universities to contribute to the investability of the companies that are emanating from our universities and in our incubators as well. So working with them to make them more investable, and to be honest, looking outside the country as well, Lawrence, as potential sources of VC for our spin-outs and our startups as well.
Okay. Just to finish up, on balance, obviously the IP protocol is a significant step forward in getting consistency, and I think that's an important thing. But on balance, do you view it as an enabler or a hindrance to the entrepreneurial ecosystem?
It's been completely an enabler, because it's broken down the language barriers between industry and universities, between entrepreneurs and VCs and universities. It's also facilitated a lot of other resources have followed the protocol, if you like. So they didn't just the department didn't say, well, this is how we want you to behave. They backed that up by providing resources in the country. As I mentioned, the KTI website, but they're also providing 30 million euros now for 5 years in terms of technology transfer infrastructure in the universities. So the protocol has been massively enabling in terms of the innovation and the entrepreneurial ecosystem.
Okay. Last thing, just to finish up, given that we have an SME audience listening as well as policymakers, if you were to give 2 or 3 pieces of advice for an SME that has an idea or wants to engage, move up the R&D value intensity chain, what would they be in terms of engaging with either Munster Technological University, UL, UCC, or any of the universities in the region?
I suppose, I mean, we would always, from an MTU point of view, we'd always encourage them maybe to look to the Innovation Voucher Programme, first of all, as a first step in terms of dipping your toe in the water. If you're not sure, you want to see how this would work with the university, it's a fantastic programme. I mean, the system did 444 innovation vouchers last year, and last year was not a great year now with COVID and everything. So there's a lot of SMEs availing of that, and they are mostly SMEs availing of that program. So that's the first step for a lot of SMEs. And then again, you can build up the relationship. You could do a couple of vouchers, and then you can move on then to maybe some other programs of joint research with a university or an institute of technology.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Josette, thank you very much for taking the time, and hopefully that wasn't too painful. So again, I'd like to thank our audience, and I'm just going to stop the recording there and